source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
For the next 2 hours, be prepared to open your mind to the edgier side of the metaphysical world. The topics discussed may prove disturbing to some, but are all a part of the world in which we live. Welcome to the Rev and Witch Show. Listener discretion.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Tim Shaw, and on the other side of the console, about 3,000 miles away, is my little witchy sister, Marla Brooks. Hello, Marla.
Hello. Yep, 3,000 miles is just about right.
Yep. I was going to say that was just a lucky guess. So it's only because I think I've walked that this past weekend. I'm not going to lie. My legs and my knees are tired. We've been busy, Marla. We've been busy.
Hey, old man, get used to it.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
We have been doing a fundraising event for the Historic Hull House and Foundation. Yeah, it's great. It's the original brick house was built in right around 1810, and there's a sort of I would say a early Victorian / remodeled Victorian on the property, a Civil War era barn, and a family cemetery, which is really neat. I have to say that the people here in Western New York really stepped up for this, and with COVID and all the problems that these historic sites have been having, especially small ones like this, money is so tight, and they really broke all records for attendance.
Wow.
It was great. But, Mar, I got to tell you, the place got out of hand. It kind of rewrote what paranormal investigations are like for me. And
that's cool.
We heard disembodied voices in the house itself. We experienced like every piece of equipment. We were in the family cemetery, and we had, I don't know, probably 10 pieces of equipment out there, meters, and a couple flashlights. And you know how I hate flashlights. I am just not into that at all. But I'm telling you, lately, it's been proving me wrong. We got, at one point, every meter was flashing. Every meter was going on. Every flashlight was on. One of the volunteers actually saw the face of something on the outside of the cemetery fence, which is pretty crazy. I saw a shadow person walking along the perimeter. We heard really like chimes, like 3 of us heard it. And to top it off, and again, I hate flashlights. I just hate them because they don't ever work for me. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And so they had them on the stones. And what's neat about the cemetery is when they did ground penetrating radar, they found that the stones, which are aligned in rows, are not correct because the burials are all like matchsticks, pickup sticks all over the place. Oh. So we had these 2 stones. I believe it's the wheelocks. It's a father and son. And one of the tour guides said, just light up the wheelocks, torches. Real time, seconds later, just those 2 went on. I was like, my jaw hit my chest, and I was like, no way. I'm looking to see if there's remote controls on them. Somebody's playing a trick on me. It was just out of hand, and it was. I have to say, it was really great this morning. I had to be there at 5:30. They had a little news thing that they had going on, and a little blurb for PR. But Western New York guys, all you listeners out there, thank you that heard our plea And you guys came out, and you guys just never fail. And when there's something that needs to be supported, Western New York's always there. So thank you guys. But that was a great event. Speaking about great events, Marla, we have two of my favorite people in the. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I met one a few years ago. I hate to even say a few years ago because it was more than a few. And the other I just met last year, and the two of them I feel like are brothers, And what I love about the two of them is the fact that even though like our religions are different, like me being a spiritualist and their Christian views, we can discuss things, and that's what I love about it. Nobody gets upset, and we find that we have more in common than we have differences. That is what I love about our guests. So bring them in, Mar. Bring them in. I can't wait. Oh my God, I got happy feet here. I got a thing of pretzels, and over here just so when everybody's eating, or everybody's talking, I can hit the mute button. I can start chomping away on there. I'm all set to go. I even comb my hair for the occasion. This is great. This is great, kiddo.
Yep. If you combed your hair, that's got to be something. All right. We've got Carl Johnson, who has been exploring the unexplained phenomena for about 40 years or so. He specializes as a demonologist and is the author of the Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook. Now, James Annitto is a deacon through the United States Old Catholic Church, as well as a demonologist and paranormal researcher and investigator who works alongside many other specialists in the field. And they together are Duo Daemonologie, which is a research unit that offers James and Carl's truly unique perspective through a series of lecture programs. Both Carl and James are highly regarded in their fields, and it's kind of the central goal of Duo Daemonologie to legitimize demonology, which is the study of the lore and tradition of wicked spirits through the application of scientific methods. Now, before I bring them in, for those of you who are listening live in the ParaX chat room, we welcome your questions and comments for this guest throughout the show. So please send them to me or Tim in a private message, and we'll get them on the air. And if you have a question or a comment and are listening outside the chat room live, then you better get yourself over here to paraxradionetwork.com and join the chat. All right, I'm done.
Marla, if they don't come over to ParaX, to the ParaX network, we're going to send, that in the Twilight Zone, that little crazy like cannibal doll with the great big teeth? We're going to send them to each and every house that is not listening in tonight. I just want to, listen, you're bringing it on yourselves, guys. It's not me, not Mar, not the guests. You guys that aren't here. Sorry, but it's true.
Well, they better hurry up because the chat room already is starting to overflow. So
awesome.
Standing room only.
That's great. Yeah. That's wonderful.
So, and it's called the Trilogy of Terror doll, just so somebody in chat just said.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So guys, I right off the bat, again, I want to say, Jim, Carl, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show tonight and be able to pick your brains, because locally we've had some interesting things going on. We've had I'm just going to say some interesting people that claim to be exorcists and demonologists, and they're out in the field. And and I'll come right out and say, and I'll just put it out there. Sometimes these people who are not as well trained as you guys can cause more harm than good. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for being on tonight.
Well, entirely welcome. The pleasure is ours. It's an honor for us to be here.
Yes, thank you for having us on tonight. It's always fun and a pleasure, especially with you, Tim, and meeting you, Marla, of course.
Thank you.
It'll be a great time tonight.
Well, you know what? I got a question, Mark. Can I ask my question first?
Of course.
This is, well, listen, my little sister, I have to kind of be nice to her once in a while. So I'm trying to be nice tonight. My wife Nancy threatens me if I'm not nice to Marla.
She really is your sister.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Well, yeah, but that goes back a couple of lifetimes, but we don't.
Generations.
Yep.
But I always, this is going to be a question for the both of you. And this is something that always fascinates me. It fascinates because a lot of people, when I'm on talk shows, they ask me, why did you ever get involved with what you're getting involved with? You know, what was that first spark? Why did you develop into this? And that's my question to you guys. Why did you guys feel that you had the calling to be in to research demonology, and why did it capture your interest so magnificently?
Kicks and giggles, really. No, I just get that out of my system. That's all right.
I knew that. Thank you very much.
I needed a hobby, and just nothing really floated my boat until. Well, actually, what happened was demonology found me. It seemed every case I was called into, there was something malevolent seeming about it. It had the permutations of something perhaps demonic. We can't try not to use demon and demonic too much, but you can't get away from it because we just don't have the clinical terminology. So it seemed these dark cases, people sought me out for them, or they were around the corner. And I don't know if that was intentional or some kind of bizarre reverse karma, but they were always finding me. And eventually, when I became established, I was known for someone who would stand his ground in trying situations. And they called me in as a specialist. Of course, I've always been very humble about that because that means I'm an expert in the unknowable, really. But people have put their confidence in me because of my level of experience. Now, my first residential case was actually that house in Harrisville, Rhode Island on Round Top, and that's called, was better known as the Conjuring House because that's the setting, the inspiration of the 2013 motion picture, The Conjuring. That was my first residential, although I wouldn't say that was demonic per se. It was interesting. But then in 1980, very early on in my career of paranormal investigation and research, I was alerted to, what turned out to be a genuine case of demonic possession. And that occurred in Providence, Rhode Island. And of course, I'd never been through anything quite like that, or anything like that. And that was when I realized I would stay. I would see it through. There were some times during that initial investigation and the intervention where I just thought, I just want to get back into my car, go back to my parents' house where I know there's food in the refrigerator, and I don't belong here. I don't feel right. What do I think I'm doing here? But another part of me says, no, you've got to stick with it. Because if I had fled the scene, and there were times I wanted to flee, I would probably never be able to go back into such a situation because it's that element of the unexpected, that makes it really unsettling.
Right.
That's what's scary about it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen minute to minute, and some of it's pretty hairy. So what's going to happen the next time? Am I going to dare to go back into such a situation? Am I going to dare to confront this? So while on the outside I look very much calm and in control, inside it's like, I don't know. I don't really belong, do I? I want to go back. I want to get into my car. I want to leave the scene. But I knew I had to stick it out. And I projected that confidence and resilience, and it became real. So, but now I know I won't run out if something happens. Now, I've had several times where I was kind of almost compelled to leave right then, but I never do. So that's how it started, a succession of dark and malevolent cases like that were brought to me. That's how I got into it, and it still happens.
Yeah, Carl and I have a little bit of a different band camp we went to for demonology badges, but that's a joke, guys. But
I was laughing. I was snickering, Jim. I was snickering. I'm not going to lie.
I'm the Titanic right now. So
cerebral.
Yes. So I basically did not have The Conjuring as my first case, as my first residential, but really what got me into the study of demonology and the applied aspect of demonology and dealing with private cases and what we would call demonic or negative was much more my childhood. As many psychologists or psychotherapists get into the field of psychology due to personal traumas that they dealt with, mine was personal trauma. But I was baptized Catholic and then adopted and then raised Lutheran by my grandparents due to a lot of trauma that had happened. And instead of wondering why the human mind would entitle such abuse to a child, but because I was so centered in religion, my grandparents would go to church every Sunday, to Lutheran church. And so I at a young age, when I could start being literate and understanding what was being said to me, I kind of denounced God. I was like, why would God do this to me? Why would my father leave me on the side of the street in front of a courthouse at 3 years old? Why would he do these things to me? And, I have no problem talking about it because I've faced those trials and tribulations. It took a long time, but I blame God for what somebody else did to me. I think a lot of other people do that as well. So with that nature, I really took a driving force into researching theology, researching anthropology, biology, Darwinism with aspects of macroevolution and minor evolution. So I really got very in depth at a young age of researching. And within that researching, aspects of like Epicurus with the theodicies like dualism and karma started coming into play, Greek philosophy, which is very important to modern day society in so many different avenues. So I got involved with, now spiritism and spiritualism, all these things exist, and ideas of spirit and good and evil, angels and demons. So I went down the route of the paranormal route because if I felt like I could figure out, and this is at a young age, I got involved in this field at 15 years old, where I started applying as a hobby, where I went out and investigated the location. At that time, I really wouldn't call it investigating, but I was exploring. I was trying to figure out if spirits did exist, because in my mind, I thought if I could figure out what spirits were, I could figure if their God truly did exist, because that would be like a puzzle, like the missing link to what happens after death, which is still undiscovered in my opinion. So with that route and those things, I actually started investigating at a young age, and I used to work at Walmart as an electronics manager and ran into Carl's brother Keith quite a few times, and I knew I'd seen him on Ghost Hunters. I was I don't like to say I'm a big fan of people, but I was a big fan of them, what they did, of course I knew of the Warrens, and so I used to pick Keith's brain and he used to pick mine about recorders and stuff like that, and eventually I started my own group, and I was very good with technology. I went to college for computer programming, and in high school I went to school for computer networking. So I was always technologically inclined. And Carl knew somebody that I knew that was on my team and who was on an episode of The Haunted. And they had worked together on a true demonic case in Orange, Massachusetts. And he's like, I know Carl. Would you like me? I was like, oh, dude, you know Carl? I know his brother Keith. Out of the two, like I said, Carl always seemed like he was a little bit more like Keith was always laid back. Carl was like the more like straightforward guy, and I was like, I gotta meet him because if you know me, that's just how I am.
Oh yeah.
So I'm very straightforward. So after that was able to become tech manager of Carl's group called Beyond the Veil Paranormal, which he had co-founded with Dina Palazzini. So that's really what led me to the forte of demonology, but it was always an interest. One of my favorite books, especially in high school, was King James's Daemonology. And it was one of a fascinating book to me because of its cultural influences, especially
yes, absolutely.
The Holy Bible, King James Version of the Holy Bible, inspired the English language to be what it is today. A lot of people were illiterate back then, and everybody had the Bible. It fed the people the need to learn English, write English, and speak it. So, King James had a parlance to where we are nowadays, and demonology was a key factor in that. But I would say Carl, of course, Keith, and Ed Warren, and a lot of the forefathers of this field as well. But yeah, definitely, Carl was kind of like the epitome of why I got into demonology, to be honest.
Yeah, we should have our faces like something like Mount Rushmore. You said there's pioneers that we were found.
Well, there is.
There's a mountain in New Hampshire called Shakakura. I think they got some space there. Our faces there. Yeah, well, it would be easy because all you have to do for my brother and I, you just replicate one face.
Yeah.
Because we're twins.
Yes.
We get James up there. James got to be
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it.
James has got to be between the two of you. That's the way that's going to work.
Ogre. There's no ogre when those two are. That's a joke. That's a joke.
You need Ed and Lorraine. Can you picture Ed and Lorraine Warren immortalized next to me?
Oh, gosh.
Maybe rolling in there.
Yeah, that's hysterical, guys.
Doesn't belong.
Oh my God, you guys are too much. That's great.
But so serious about this talk tonight. It just, I don't know. I guess it's too close to Halloween to be totally straight and serious now.
We got to give you a lot of tricks and treats tonight.
Well, I have to agree. And Marla, let me just jump in on your time here just for a couple seconds because I know you love me and you do that for me. But I got to tell you too, this is something that I have been like preaching in all of my classes and whatever we're doing. Everybody is so serious. Oh my God, everybody's like, and I agree when it comes to the investigation and when you're working on a very, very serious case, you must be serious. But on the other hand, you should be, when, the time is right, you should be able to laugh and you should be able to be happy and joyful. And that's where I think a lot of people are kind of missing the boat. And you guys, and I'm going to tell you something, as humble, when we're talking humble, you guys are on the radio, people out there don't get the full effect of you guys. People, listeners out there, these are two of the most humble guys you'll ever want to meet. And they're willing to sit down and talk and help you. And I can't say enough about them. And, I'm like, yeah, okay, Marla, I can see you rolling your eyes over there saying I'm a suck-up. But, yeah, I am a suck-up because the two of them are the real deal, kiddo.
Oh, I know. I absolutely know. And, you were talking about funny and being able to have a sense of humor. I was looking the other day just on the web for no particular reason, and I found a website that offers a diploma in modern demonology for paranormal investigators for $40.
Oh, I was spending that. I'm spending that tonight, Marla. Sorry.
What should we receive?
Yeah, well, it was kind of amusing. But, okay, so here's what the course overview says. It says, this course's approach to modern demonology will give you practical skills, there you go, Freudian slip there, in identifying, communicating with, summoning, and controlling demons. And in their frequently asked questions section, there was a question that said, is demonology dangerous? And the answer was no. There are no recorded deaths that have been attributed to demonic possessions or haunting whatsoever.
Wow.
So what do you think about the $40 diploma?
Wow.
It's because of that diploma that there have been no deaths. That's why.
Yes, they're licensure now. I have a secular job outside of being a deacon and, of course, working with Carl, doing demonology, working with other people. But that requires a license. And holy crap, I paid way more than $40 for that license. It's like $100 and something a year. I have to renew that thing. So, good for them. $40. They're
such a deal.
They're grandmasters.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's just amazing. But that's the lay of the land sometimes because people want to see certificates, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, an online course in demonology. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of the repercussions that'll happen. I'm afraid of people that are going out there with this diploma and the certificate and thinking that they can handle these cases, thinking that they're the second coming to handle these cases. And Jimmy, you and I have talked many times when we see each other about having to clean up after other people. And
yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I not to detest all those courses. My bishop does do demonology courses where you do get some sort of like certificate or whichever. But he does clearly state that this does not make you a demonologist. Does not mean that you should go out and assess and apply this. It's just like if you take Lloyd Auerbach's parapsychology courses. It doesn't make you a parapsychologist.
Right.
But they're little feeler courses because, and why I brought that up is our manager, Lisa, is taking courses right now with that. But a great course, by the way. But the same token, those are like refresher courses. Those are like give you an idea if you run into this, this is who you call upon. But like you said, so many people take upon that, and like they'll take like a first aid course and they'll think they're like a doctor,
right?
Or they, they take a course on demonology and they're demonologists. I wish it was that easy.
Well, I'm gonna just as a clarification. Jimmy's bishop is Bishop James Long, that many of us know. We know he's the real deal. He's been out there in the field for many, many years. So, I mean, that's a whole different animal. But I mean, I would be afraid to take a course like that from, well, let's say Marla Brooks is going to be teaching demonology, and that would be something that, you know what, buyer beware when it comes to this. Buyer beware. Now, let me can we get just a little bit serious now? Can we get a little bit serious, Mr. Carl and Mr. Jim?
We can do that. We can maintain that for a limited period, yes.
Yeah, it's tough because Marla and I just can't keep it together either. For the listeners, can you guys give a description or explain just what? Now, this is going to be hard, and I understand it, but just what a demon is and just what a spirit attachment is, and what's the kind of the difference between the two?
Well, I heard you were going to ask some challenging questions tonight, so this is one of them, because it's very difficult to define, and it's interpretive, too. A demon is a disembodied intelligence that seems to have an agenda against the human race. It's always thought of as being malevolent. It can do more and behaves differently from what we would think of as a ghost, a typical human-generated spirit. It's easier to say what a demon is not than what it is. It's not of the light. It's not anything that walked the earth in human form. It's not a deceased person, although it can pose as one. But it could be succinctly described as a poltergeist with an attitude. And it does behave. The demonic force can behave very much like a poltergeist, but there's an insidious quality to the baser spirit. These demons, they seem to root themselves in a residence, and they seem to target one person at a time. So that evinces the demon, and the demon needs to be invited in. It can't just come in on its own for whatever lore or reason. And once it has established a foothold in a house, in a residence, it's very difficult to get rid of. Now, a demon can come in by invitation as an occult working. Not that that's always a terrible thing, but if somebody performs like a pagan ritual and does not banish the spirit and leaves that portal open, at least that's how it's thought to be, all kinds of nasty things can come in. And in pure interpretation, the demon has the wisdom of the ages because it's been around since time immemorial. It hasn't been always around. It hasn't always existed. It was created, but it has been here, as long and perhaps predating the human race. So it's accrued a lot of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Demons can't do everything, just like Superman can't do everything, but Superman can do a lot, and the demon can do a lot. The demon can't read minds. It can't bilocate, can't be more than one place at a time, can't actually take somebody's life, but it can torment. The power of the demon is that it's persistent. It doesn't need to sleep. It listens, it learns, and ensnares people. It has subtlety to it. Some of the demons do. Some of them are just trouble causers. So that's what we know, and you can talk more about what we don't know pertaining to demons than what we do. But that's my definition of a demon. It's an inhuman spirit, never was a human being. And if there are demons that don't hate humans, we never hear about them. So yeah, it's a malicious spirit.
And as long, to add a little flavor to that, or icing to that cake, because that was a whole piece of cake right there.
Oh, that eclair.
Eclair, yes. But in all seriousness, though, is, people always look at demons to be of the Christian faith, and that's actually incorrect.
Correct. Right.
In Judaistic belief, they are in Christianity. Hell, they are in one of the oldest modern day religion, Hinduism, which is 4,400 years old. If you look at their texts, their scriptures, the demons their gods fought demons every day. It was a big part of that belief system. So demons really flavor a lot of faith and belief systems throughout all the way to the Akkadian Empire with Mesopotamia. So it's been around a very long time. Hell, even the most famous of them all for most people, Zozo, or A.K. Pazuzu, he was a Mesopotamian demon,
Right.
That's the one that is thought to make the rounds.
Yeah.
Shows up and
so
spirit boards for one.
It's not just the Christian thing, but of course, it's a multiple belief system, polytheistic and monotheistic belief system that these demons exist.
Yeah, well, somebody in the chat room said she thought that a demon was a fallen angel. So, I mean,
in Christian interpretation. Mm-hmm.
So, actually, kind of the word demon could be an umbrella term for many things. The grumpy, mean human spirit, or elemental spirit.
Well, demon in all those cultures are very similar to what a fallen angel interpretation is. Like in Greek, in a perfect example where the word comes from, Greek mythology, the word daemon, basically where daemons they were kind of like mediators between the god and the humans. They would spy on the humans and then report back to the gods. So in many systems, that is what they are, and that's what technically an angel is in Christianity. It is the mediator between God and the individual. So if these angels fell from the graces of God, now they are demons or fallen angels or what some people would call devils, then it's very similar in nature. It's just how I guess you look at it and speak what you say.
People think maybe that they come from hell and they do the devil's bidding. That's what they do, but they they have their own agendas, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think they have some sort of. Maybe Carl can touch upon a little bit about that because he's been at it for 40 and of course, not to throw him on the bus, but he was also a Satanist, so he knows a little bit more of that realm of thing.
I've seen the other side.
You've seen that other side. So, but in reality, though, I think there is a hierarchy, to some extent. Like there are lesser demons and more higher echelon demons, but most of them are at it for themselves and very manipulative. If you look at the Christian aspect, why Lucifer fell was because of pride. And if you know somebody with pride, all they do is care about themselves. So it's very similar in nature.
Yes, it's established. Now that is established as a well-known and embraced myth. When I say myth, I don't mean to discount it and say it can't be true. There may be a very, very poignant and very grim reality behind that. What could be a fantasy too. But the story is that Lucifer was an archangel, one of the highest and the most powerful of angels, beloved and bestowed of God. But he had a humanistic trait to him. He was prideful, and when the earth was created, he thought he should be master of the earth. Instead, God created Adam and gave dominion of the earth to Adam. Lucifer did not cotton to that, so what happened was there was this great rebellion, celestial rebellion in heaven, and some of the angels, these celestial beings, sided with great Lucifer. They were overthrown, and 1/3 of the heavenly host were cast down out of paradise, and they were thrown into the nether regions, which eventually became hell once the devil occupied it. And this great angel, this bright light, Lucifer, and actually Lucifer means in Latin, it's light bearer. Luci is light, enlightenment, and fere means to bear. So Lucifer became Satan, the accuser, the devil, and he rules over hell now because he had to rule even though it is in hell. So that's the story of how the demonic empire was created. and that's the story. I see it as a myth, but I never just relax about it. I always think, suppose it's exactly like that. You know, I mean, what do we know?
Yeah.
But then again, other cultures and other faiths have that similar story
Very similar,
of a fallen angel that, you know, was once a great and bright angel.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, every traditional religion has aspects of other religions within it.
Yes.
So I always tell people, never discount anything. No, even if you think it's a myth, even if you think it's a morality play, never discount it, because first of all, we don't know, but second of all, look at it. Look at what it's saying and dissect it and bring it out so yourself, for first, you've got to be able to go and embrace it and understand it and then share it. And that's what I think a lot of it ended up being. Now, I got a chat room question that came in, and it comes into about Zozo, one of my favorite topics, because as you guys know, I do collect, you know, Ouija boards and talking boards. It's just part of my collection. And, you know, and of course, I mean, Jimmy knows that, I mean, we never used a talking board back when I was a kid, when I was taking classes and that sort of stuff down in the Lilydale Assembly, the Spiritualist Assembly. But we did use a polished table and a shot glass for yes or no answers, and it worked the same way basically. Now, my question, or the question that came in, is this: Zozo, why do you think that this particular entity all of a sudden popped on the scene, which it didn't really pop on the scene if you do the research on it? It's been around for a while, but it's so prevalent now, and people have gotten it. I don't know of many people who actually work with the boards that did not get a visit from Zozo. When Jimmy and I were up at Hinsdale, we experimented. No, well, Jimmy and I didn't, but I mean, some of the guests did, with a talking board, and Zozo, the board actually spelled out ZOZO, and I'm like, okay, we're going to shut this down, and everybody's like, no, keep it going, and it's like, no, we're shutting this down. Whatever it is probably not good. Why do you think it favors the talking boards?
So my definition for Zozo is more like bozo. So I'll let Carl take that over.
I feel the same way, Jimmy. I feel exactly the same way.
So Carl, Carl's not aficionado with Ouija boards or talking boards, so I'll let him answer that question.
Oh my God, this dude! I was just going to say Zozo first cousin to Bozo. I didn't think he came out with it. Well, it's not funny the second time, so I won't even go there. You know, oh, it's kind of funny the first time. Now, you want to know my take on spirit communication, or Zozo in particular, right?
Right.
Zozo could have different sources. There was in the Bible, there is actually it's part of the Apocrypha, and there was the Book of Enoch, which is actually three different books. The Book of Enoch was expelled from the Bible, expunged, you might say.
Still the Catholic Bible, though.
Yeah, it still is. You know, it was in the Council of Nicaea. It was decided that it was anathema. But Azazel was a rather strange and powerful angel who instructed the human race. And he was kind of like a liaison to God Almighty. And he was ruler of the Elohim, the heavenly host. And we think Zozo may proceed from that, but there's also, as James mentioned, Pazuzu, Mesopotamian god of plagues.
Correct, right.
And storm winds. So you got this conglomeration of these Z names, and then people say that the Zozo starts showing up on their spirit boards and their Ouija boards, and the rule is that once you get Zozo, that's a demon. You got to shut the session down. But it just seems like the planchette would very easily go to ZOZO. You know? But once you get the Z, then you start thinking, okay, that's Azazel, and it could be Ahriman is another wicked spirit, and they're Pazuzu, so it's generally something bad. But it's just a name, and names have some resonance to them. If I was playing on a Ouija board, not that I would ever do that, Well, not for the last month or so. But
this is why I love you, Carl. This is why I love you.
I have indulged in Ouija-ing. What was that movie? My brother knows it with this elderly man. It's a comedy. He goes, "Do you Ouija?" Which is also a first cousin to squeegee, like the squeegee persons. But yeah, they're rather demonic. But I don't know if I should say play on a Ouija board. I experiment with Ouija boards, but I wouldn't take their advice if they said play number 666 or do not cross the street at noontime. I wouldn't pay attention to that either. But you do get some remarkable results, and I have my own theories on how Ouija boards and spirit boards work. But some other researchers share. But that Zozo thing, it's funny. It's like the fantasy begets the reality, because this thing starts showing up, and people do get it. They get the ZO. So you might think it's real, but once it started, it's believed in, and that gives it some power. The power of suggestion. It shows the subconscious is coming into play, and who knows, in some form or substance, it might even create a real spirit that functions like a demon, or functions like a spirit that can talk through the Ouija boards. Maybe it's an energy displacement that has more or less been created. The synthesized spirit. Yeah,
like we were talking, Tim, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but I really do feel like some of these, and Coral and I have thought, well, of course, this theory, where this kind of accumulates to like the Philip experiment. Like these things were so in people's consciousness and a lot of people's interpretation and usage of it. Maybe that group consciousness, that collective consciousness, was able to create something like a Zozo, and why it's connected to such devices or such application of a board. So that's a possibility too. We all created a Philip named Zozo.
Yeah. In other words, it takes on an evanescent life of its own. It's
correct. Yes.
If it's believed in, it becomes real because people have contributed their energies to it, their belief. And it strikes a responsive chord in the human minds and people who experiment with these things. And we think there's some evidence that these things really exist if they're believed in strongly enough, which was a fascinating experiment that was conducted in Ontario, the Psychical Research Center. I think it was Toronto, Canada. And that was 1972. Yeah. The experiment was that they had a seance, they called forth a spirit named Philip. I think it was Philip of Monmouth. He had this whole history. He was a person who lived in the upper Middle Ages, and he had an illicit affair. The woman was executed for adultery. In remorse, he threw himself off a turret of his tower. He's got this elaborate history, where the land he owned. The interesting thing is that Philip never existed. He was a literary creation. They made him up. They gave him a history. And the Psychical Research Unit held a seance. They even put out a candy dish for him to give him an offering. They held a legitimate seance. Well, it didn't succeed the first time. The second time, the candy dish started to rattle. They started to get some rats underneath the table answering them. They were producing genuine spirit phenomena like a seance, but this wasn't tricked. This wasn't a contrived seance. It was the real deal. And somehow they got Philip. There was a book called Conjuring Up Philip.
Correct. My favorite.
Oh, yeah, isn't it, though? And this begs several questions. Did they outright create this, synthesize this spirit? Signs point to yes. Planchette points to yes. Did they inadvertently summon some spirit that was similar? Maybe its name was Philip. Maybe there was a character out of history, but not well known, that resembled that same history, was essentially Philip. Maybe they invoked something that was already there. Maybe it's a conglomerate. Maybe, we'll never know what the basic mechanics were behind this, but they did conjure up Philip.
Well, we might know the basic mechanics of it very soon. Wink, wink.
Oh, yeah, you've got something. Right? You got a plan, man with a plan.
Tim does.
Tim?
Yeah, we're working.
Well, that's what I'm speaking to. Yeah, he does. Yeah, we don't give too much away. I'm looking forward very much.
Well, I'll let the cat out of the bag because what happened to me was when I was a kid, I shouldn't say a kid, when I was serving the pulpit at a local spiritualist church, we were studying for ordination, and I tend to question everything, because everything isn't paranormal, everything isn't crazy out there. I'm looking for the truth. I don't want to go and have some sleight of hand, and I'm not one of those people that really believe in all that, a lot of that stuff. I almost said crap on the air, but that's all right. Well, in the church, we all said, well, how do we know? And we were talking about the Fox family and the peddler and what his name was and everything. Well, how do we know this stuff? We weren't there, and so we went down, and the Philip experiment revolved around table tipping. And so we jumped on the table and we started asking questions. Well, what happened was the table was rapping out similar answers, like similar names, except like one or two letters were different. And I was like, this is interesting. But everybody took note of it. And 2 weeks later, one of the women that was also studying with us came in with a book, American Spiritualism by Emma Bridge Harding. And in the book, the way the name was spelled of the peddler was exactly what came through the table when we were doing the alphabet wrapping system. And that always enthralled me because of the fact that it's like, my God, this is just like the Philip experiment. So what I'm doing, my goal is as a matter of fact, I just taught table tipping last night for a small group. But what I want to do in 2021 is I'm getting a group of people together, and we're going to work in a seance situation where it's the same people every week. And I want to see if we can replicate some of the Owens experiments that they did up in Toronto. And I've been able to go and get everything that the Canadian Psychical Society has on the experiments. And we do believe that the Owens son is still alive up in Calgary. So I'm on a mission to try to find him because he taped a lot of it. And it's really interesting. So I'm, with any luck, we'll go and we'll, once I can get some groundwork done, I want to be able to go and bring in some heavy hitters like, Jim Annitto and Carl L. Johnson to come in and maybe we can work in some kind of capacity with the table and see if we can go and draw in a personality to fulfill like a thought form or whatever they did. So
that's a thought form, yeah. When you have like-minded individuals in a common endeavor, you're likely to achieve some results.
I think so, yeah. I think so. It's going to be great. Great. Sorry, Marla. I just get like so excited. I'm like, with these two, I'm just like a little kid in a candy store. I got 1,001 things I want to pick their brains with.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm fielding questions from the chat room. So, and I've got one right now, so I'll put it in.
Okay.
She wants to know how many cases you guys have gone on that were thought to be ghosts, but actually turned out to be demons.
That's a good question. I'll answer that quickly because in 15 years of experience, I tried, specifically Carl and I, as Duo Daemonologie, tried to really pinpoint the science within this field. A lot of it's, of course, based on theory and in some forms myth and folklore, but a lot of the cases that I've dealt with in the past 15 years have tended to be something else than demonic. And I'll give a number. I've done probably 400 plus cases in 15 years. That's from either just doing hobbyist things. Like I really went in depth when I was younger, so I really tried to capture data in many different facets because it really was something I sought out to discover. So within that time frame, I'd say only 5 cases I've ever dealt with were demonic. And 3 of those were possession cases. So that's a really small number. As far as what were ghosts or what was a poltergeist, or in a lot of cases, I tend to believe this more than anything. Unfortunately, it is the person, a psychological disorder or ailment that they have, that they're creating this reality, because sometimes when they are having traumatic experiences, it's the easiest thing to jump to for people to come help. Because when you say I have a ghost in my house or I have a demon in my house, it creates a sense of urgency for, of course, people like us in this field So I would actually think a lot of the cases I dealt with were of a psychological issue. But I also tend to think that a lot of it's also psychokinetic, where like such thing as a poltergeist or a thought form, I think that has a lot to do with it as well, than more so like an earthbound spirit, even though I have come across that. But like I said, 5 cases were only demonic in my time frame. How about you, Carl?
I believe it's been, I could give a count of 5, and that's over dozens of cases over 47 years. Not that I've been at it consistently. I've had to take breaks from paranormal investigation and, demonology. It's ended a couple of relationships for me, as a matter of fact, when you come up against, like, so you'd rather go to a cemetery, you'd rather go to a haunted house and spend time with me. And it's like, well, no. You can't say it. You do rather. But, yes. So it's been 5 cases for me. I remember them vividly, starting with that case in 1980. The subject was a 14-year-old boy. And, of course, there were psychological ramifications. I've never come up against a case that was adjudicated to be demonic that didn't have significant psychological implications to it right from the start. So, but you probe, you interview the subjects, and you find out what's at the root. Because I'm always trying to get to what caused this. I'm not just going to assume something came here and disrupted this family unit. Something caused this. There was some trauma, some unresolved conflict that's been buried, and I want to get to the root of that, because that could be the cause of the disturbance. Now, sometimes the paranoia, even when it's demonic, sometimes that's the symptom more than the cause. So it has been uncommon where I've actually thought it was demonic. There have been spirits with attitudes, nasty ones and like that, but that's kind of the old granddad that's hanging around sometimes. Not that they can't be menacing, because anything that's unknown can be frightening. But with the demonic force, there's something really oppressive that one feels. It's like, I just feel sick, don't want to be here. There's something wrong about this place. At least now there is. So that's one way you can tell the difference. The real way to ascertain whether it's a human-generated haunting or a demonic haunt is time. Observe. Wait it out, see what symptoms it evinces, and then you'll be able to tell eventually if it was. You can get a pretty good determination if it's demonic.
Especially if personalities start changing in the household, individuals. Yeah.
So I may never encounter a purely demonic case, or what we determine as a demonic case again. I don't know. It should be interesting to find out. But after a while, I never jump to the conclusion, even though it seems like, because we do get contacted by persons that say, well, I have a demon after me. I have a demon in my house. This demon won't leave me alone. Well, demon could just mean inconvenient. Those are easier to address, though, generally. But when it's demonic force, that's something to take quite seriously, of course. Definitely. And we have to have that gallows humor, like in MASH. You have to have some kind of displacement, some objectification. If you can joke about it, it doesn't have you totally.
Yeah, well, and they find sorry, Tim, some of the paranormal investigators find demons around every corner and under every bed, and they seriously believe it. And they're thrill seekers, and they're trying to call on them and evoke them and whatever. But in fact, if they actually found themselves face to face with a demon, they probably would definitely know it and maybe never tell the tale again, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Like Carl said it, and of course can elaborate on it after what I say, because I know he always can expound upon things a little bit differently with his experience level. Is, anytime, like Carl said, you feel it, I know he talks about his case with the 14-year-old boy wanting to jump out a window, but, and the same thing is anytime I've been in that case, regardless of how strong-willed you are or how fearless you are, there's that chemical reaction in your brain that comes to play called fight or flight. And, and anytime I've been in that situation, that's occurred. I'm stupid enough to stay, of course, and well,
good for you.
Yeah, but that same
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, somebody has to. But in that same reality, though, a lot of people, and I've even taken people on cases with me that weren't demonic, and they were, very malevolent in nature. A lot of issues at the household, and these people could not ascertain, could not fathom those kind of cases. So sometimes, like, I hear the people that say, I want to deal with demonic cases, or I'm around demon all the time. Like, to me, I don't get it, because most people can say I'm one of the most strong-willed people they've met. I can put something in front of me and I try to do my best to accomplish it, and most likely will. But in that same time, when there is this something that is so oppressive to you, and the chemical reactions of fight or flight are coming into play, you feel it. It's not like easy. It's dreadful. There's a lot of ramifications from it. Physically, mentally.
Yes.
Socially,
Lingering
effects. So. Unfortunately, I just think people think sometimes spirit communication is a form of malevolency, especially when it comes to scratching or pushing, and because that's sometimes all a spirit can do to some form of communication. So, but yeah, so many people, I think, deal.
That's a good point, because you always think of the scratches. He had 3 scratches on his shoulder.
Oh my God.
It's demonic.
Oh.
Yeah, but if I was an invisible person, I really wanted to get somebody's notice, and I couldn't just appear.
Yeah.
I think they do what they can. If they have a volition, and they sometimes will inflict abrasions, like a big scratch, so people will know they're around. That's what I'd be doing, because I think if you're a spirit, like shouting to somebody really isn't going to help much. And, you might move a marble or something, and nobody's going to pay attention, but you put a scratch on somebody, then they know something's up.
Especially if those individuals, and it seems like a lot of these times that the individuals that come forth with the demonic nature of things is the people that are provoking and going in there with the wrong law of attraction, like the new thought theory of laws of attraction. You go in there with, if you do things positively, positive things are going to attract you. If you do negative things are going to attract you. So if you go in there with a negative mindset, sometimes you're going to get negative answers back from something that's intelligent there, even if it's not demonic, So, some people get what they ask for, and, it doesn't mean it's demonic.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You hope it's not demonic, because they have staying power.
Yeah.
Now, guys, we're going to be going for a break pretty soon, but in 3 minutes, can you guys just kind of describe what an attachment is? Because my God, everybody I've seen at a lot of these public events, they're getting attachments. They're like freaking out all the time. What is an attachment, and is it something that's common that people can get?
I think it is, actually. Just looking at it objectively. They're also called hitchhikers, and this is some kind of spirit residue that people pick up when they are in a paranormal investigation or a haunted setting. And these things aren't very strong or powerful, but they're disturbing because they latch on to somebody. They're part of the haunting that comes with the person once the living person leaves the setting. And they bring it back, and then suddenly their house or apartment is haunted. Things are moving around, hearing raps on the walls. And I think it is a viable manifestation that these things somehow, a little bit of like a shuttlecraft, a little bit of the haunting comes off and attaches it to a sensitive, receptive person and comes back with them. I find they don't last long. After, and this is a long-term scenario, 6 months, the attachment has dissolved. It can't latch itself on that strongly or replicate itself. So yeah, people pick up the ghosties.
Yeah.
Like an exponent on your shoulder.
Yeah, I dealt with the attachment myself, so I agree with Carl that they do exist, but I also tend to think, too, where maybe I differ with Carl, is I think they're a possibility, or maybe there is no difference, but where with most people, I think a lot of the times when people jump to the conclusion of attachment, it's, like I said earlier, it's sometimes easier to jump to the conclusions that it's the paranormal affecting your life than just your life affecting your life or your choices.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I think people tend to jump to something that's easier to explain than maybe their choices.
Give people a device, though. Like, don't blame it on, luck or, bad misfortune. Maybe it's the attachment.
Yeah.
I was underrating it, saying it's not very powerful influence.
Yeah, definitely.
But if somebody is going to say, like a horrendous site, like an abandoned asylum, like a 19th, early 20th century asylum, and they hang around there, that attachment could be truly wicked. That could be bad. And then they need intervention. They need somebody to counsel them. They need to get away from it. So, yeah, that can be a strong attachment. That can be almost maybe as bad as the original haunting. People do bring those back with them. The principles, of course, we don't fully understand, but they latch on to people like a virus, and people who are susceptible, receptive, psychically sensitive, jump onto somebody, and if it's from a terrible place like an abandoned asylum, then it could last for a while.
My biggest problem, I think, with the attachments is that it's more psychological than anything else. I really believe that.
Yes.
Because of the fact that there right now in this day and age, there's just way too many people out there that are claiming them, that are jumping around, and they've been in the field not even a year or 2 years or whatever, and then you have other people that are walking around that just walk up to people and say, "Well, you have an attachment. Do you want me to get rid of it?" I'm really having a problem with that, and I have to agree with you guys because it can last. Now, average attachments that I've worked with, 4 days, they start to dissipate,
Yeah.
But they can last long. People don't get that. But I got one that lasted probably a couple months. So yeah, people are just kind of like, I don't know. But I think if you have a healthy attitude, and you actually have a cognitive belief system, I really don't think you're going to have that much problem with them. It's not like you're out searching for them. And Marla is tugging on her ear, saying it's time for a break, right, Marla?
It is. Mm-hmm. And Sarge is going to smack me if I don't make it happen. Go for it.
We're just getting to the good stuff.
I know. So off we go. We'll be back. We'll be back very soon. Everybody stay put and don't go summoning demons while we're gone.
Your source for everything paranormal, Para-X.
You've no doubt heard of Tango and Cash, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Perhaps it takes two to tango. Well, now, on the first and third Thursdays of each month, there's a show called Tango and Friends at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Para-X Radio Network with your host, Bruce Tango. And yes, there will be at least two to tango on each episode, sometimes even more. There's going to be lots of topics and lots of guests you'll all know and lots of surprises. Tango and Friends every first and third Thursday of the month at 8 p.m. right here on the Para-X Radio Network.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Para-X, and the link will appear. Just like magic.
Almost 2 decades, Midnight Syndicate has composed the soundtrack to your darkest nightmares. The imaginations of fans worldwide have been fueled by its gothic, horror, and fantasy symphonic albums. A staple of the haunted house and amusement park industry, for many, the music of Midnight Syndicate is the music of Halloween. Now, Midnight Syndicate will bring your nightmares to life in a spectacle of sound from beyond the grave.
Throughout time, events have occurred that have shaped human history. Spirit voices from the past have many stories to tell, and for the past several years, channelers Barry and Connie Strom have been conducting live channeling sessions and relaying those stories and messages from those on the other side. We invite you to tune in to Barry and Connie's new show, Channeling History, on the Para-X Radio Network every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern as they relay the messages of those voices from the past, the ones who have witnessed history firsthand, and those who have made history themselves.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para-X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para-X.
Hey, and we're back, everybody. Thank you for listening. You're listening to the Rev and Witch Show here on the Para-X Radio Network. I almost said Para-X Radio Empire, Marla. Was that a slip of the tongue? Maybe that was, I'm projecting that forward. Maybe I'm trying to create an empire out of Para-X. Is that could that be the truth?
Or you're just going to take it and run.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, or creating an egregore for that matter. You know.
Oh my God! Don't be throwing those words at me. It's I'm too tired for that stuff.
Good for your soul.
Hey, we have two fantastic guests that I am just so proud to really call them friends, because I just think the world of both of them, and I love the fact that they can tackle a very, very difficult subject and still have humor about it and still be able to be teachers and instructors to all of us. So please welcome back Deacon James Annitto and the marvelous, the effervescent, the iridescent, the Rhodes Scholar, Carl L. Johnson. I had trouble getting that last part out, Carl. I'm sorry to say.
His head just exploded. He's not with us anymore. He's a headless horseman right now.
I glow in the dark now.
I love it. Hey, I have something that when I sat down and I was kind of composing some questions that I would like to ask the two of you. I was brought in on a project to write a companion book to an independent movie. And it's centered around what I feel would have been a temporal possession attempt, where it had a lot of the classic stuff that was going on. It was a college kid, and it was in a dormitory, and I mean, it was a target. It definitely was a target. Now, it's sort of a twofold question. What I kind of found doing the historical research and the background behind it was it may have been a human spirit that had been tortured and killed in a very grotesque manner during the Revolutionary War, not far from the college campus. That's the first part of the question. Do you guys think that, it would be possible that a human entity, human-created spirit, could do something of this nature and mimic a poltergeist or demonic attack? But also, is it kind of possible that this person subconsciously may have created it himself? Because we all know about poltergeist and human-targeted poltergeist, and sometimes a person through subconscious thought can influence mindless psychokinetic energy, which causes whatever to happen. So what's your opinion on this, guys? Because this is something that's really important to me, because I wrote the book on it, and I'm sort of like, even to this day, I have questions about, what it actually was that this kid kind of faced.
Well, it's a good question. I think where people misunderstand a certain deity or a certain spirit or a certain name is equivocally what in Judaistic belief would be called a divik. And divik is a lost soul that can possess individuals due to their wanting of nature to tell their story or to kind of reprimand that person in a negative way because they died in such a tragic manner. So in some cultural beliefs, yes, spirit can, of earthbound nature, human spirit can possess an individual. But I would more so equate it to that if something's interacting with you and it starts kind of destructuring your faith, your ability of understanding, leads to the point of where I definitely think everybody has some sort of ability of sixth sense, because the idea of the pineal gland has been around for a very long time, and
the third eye,
and even though we understand a little bit of what it does, it's still very unknown to why it's there. It does release melatonin to the body, for which makes you sleep, but in that same token, it's been around for a long time. So I think that if you allow some invasive spirit to intercede into your life, I think what we do is, in some form of capability, go into a trance-like state and allow the possibility of channeling due to invitation, because we become weakened to the oppressive nature of this earthbound spirit. And the second nature of it, could this person, due to stress of college and traumatic experiences in life, create a tulpa or a thought form or poltergeist? I think it's definitely a possibility. Like I say, I tend to believe a lot of the cases now how I look at them. Maybe I looked at them differently in my youth. That a lot of these cases were projected by these traumatic experiences. Maybe they did deal with phenomena like that was caught through data, but I think anytime that there's enough suggestion into something, that there could be physical ramifications, and of course other ramifications involved that can be noticeable by other people. There's a thing called shared hallucination. If one person's hallucinating, that doesn't mean that other people can't hallucinate if it's a shared experience, especially if that other person's suggesting to you that this is a possibility and you've fallen within that trap. So it's a possibility. Of course, I wasn't involved with that experience. I tried to go based upon the things that I've dealt with and from the nature that I can stand. But of course, I've heard stories from Carl, Keith Johnson, yourself, John Zappis and Ross Archie, all these people that have these fundamental backgrounds in dealing with people. And in the same testament, I can't really understand what they dealt with, but there could be so many different factors. I hear college student, to me that's college. I've been in college numerous times, and seminary including, as stressful as all hell. So I could just imagine if you are in a weakened state, what you can put forth. So it's definitely, I think there could have been multiple possibilities, maybe a conglomerate of all of it together in some honesty. How about you, Carl?
Could you back up the last 10 minutes and just reiterate and say that all again?
Is that what you?
I'm just kidding you. I think you went over your 1 million word quota with that one.
All right.
But that's a thorough elucidation. You can't. These are not yes or no questions. You have to kind of give an essay to state what your opinion is. You have to, and your experience. I think that there are human spirits that are capable of generating a lot of power and make themselves known, and can do what a poltergeist does, and can do to some degree what a demon does. Now, why isn't that universal? Why can't every murdered victim come back and haunt their murderers? And why isn't justice served? If somebody is falsely accused and tried and executed, why don't they always come back? Sometimes they do. Most of them don't. We don't know why every once in a while a human soul seems to have the capability of almost surviving the grave, like making an impression in its after existence. We just can't know why that's not universal. But sometimes they do. Sometimes a human-generated spirit that was once a living person, can really make its mark and come back, and toss things around or write on the wall, literally, and and make impressions on people and slap persons and leave messages in the pages of the leaves of books. Sometimes spirits can do that, just not consistently.
Totally agree.
It's the big to know. It's the big mystery.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just getting a whole bunch of questions from the chat room. This is good. So let me throw one at you. I don't quite know how you're going to answer it because I'm not sure either. But this person wants to know, how often do you find that demons work with people they possess on a quid pro quo basis?
Do the demons actually work with in tandem with them, and they kind of serve each other's purpose, you mean?
That's a good question. Wouldn't that go like more upon like the aspects of obsession, Carl?
Yeah, well, in a certain stage, you could be called it obsession, as which is kind of related to oppression. But yeah, a partnership forms between the demonic and invasive entity and the person is more or less saying, "You can speak through me." It's kind of a power trip. It's I abdicate responsibility for my actions and my body. You can inhabit me for a time. And yeah, people can walk the streets and even go to work and have a job and be possessed and not eventually find out if you hang around the individual long enough. But yeah, I think that they can work in cooperation with each other. It's not a rewarding experience long term. The person will probably become schizophrenic if they weren't before. But yeah, I think someone can invite in the demon and let it function through them. It's their Mr. Hyde, in a way. Using masculine tense. It's there, Mr. Hyde, that, like, for a while I'm going to abdicate the responsibility of my own consciousness, my own volition. I'm going to ride this. It's going to be, a trip. I'm going to let the demon come through me. It can't end well, either unless they stop it at a certain point.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
I think there are
it's a strange symbiotic union between a demonic force and a living human being.
Yeah, I think there would be a lot of health ramifications too, because if you think about it,
like I said, it can't end well.
Yeah, I try to equate to like, and for people where Carl says it doesn't end well, you got to remember, if we call these things evil beings, and the way that people, their body reacts to these spirits, these demonic spirits in that environment, how you feel like you're getting punched in the solar plexus, that fight or flight. Just imagine this possession in most cases, which is transient in most cases, where it comes and goes. But if this demonic force is inhabiting this person in to the standards of where
quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Say that with a mouthful of
ice. In that same sense, though, is there going to be health ramifications because just look at stress, look at anxiety. Quid pro quo.
Say it slowly; it comes out right.
Yes, but in the same ramifications of like stress, anxiety, and other things that happen in everyday life, if this evil, oppressive spirit is manifesting within you, using you, possessing you in your own volition, your body's going to most likely get these disorders, get these ailments. Somehow. Yeah, your body might get cancer. There's going to be certain things that your body will kind of reject because of this evil within inside you. And a good example of it is, of course, not all of it was of the demonic nature, but a good example of it is Annalise Mikel. She died due to malnutrition, but look at how she looked, a pretty young lady. And when she at her death, what she looked like afterwards, it was a total polar opposite of that young woman.
Just somebody who died of what they died of, malnutrition and neglect, self-abuse. That's horrendous. Yeah. Well, it's always fascinating to think of this dichotomy that lives within humans, and does it originate within the human psyche and the human soul, or is it something invasive? Sometimes, if the subject doesn't survive long, you don't know. But you find wonderful examples of that in fiction, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But that was, in a sense, it was someone possessed by a demon, but the demon was part of the human mind.
Yeah.
The potion was able to nullify the good, and only the evil surfaced in what was called Mr. Hyde. That's a charming book to read, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Also, in the early 1970s, there was a Gothic soap opera series called Strange Paradise, And I'm willing to bet that unless my brother and sister are listening to this, that nobody would remember that show. It was on for a season, well, 2 seasons, and it was from the fall into winter. And it was the story of a man who isolated himself on an island called Maljadan, and he would allow the spirit of his ancestor, his 17th century ancestor, to take over him for a while. So in a sense, he was possessed by the spirit of his antecedent. And it was a fascinating, that polarity. It was fascinating to see it portrayed like that. Like there was a portrait of his ancestor, Jacques Éloi Dumont, and that portrait, whenever the spirit was inhabiting the body of his descendant, the portrait was blank. It was just a blank canvas, black canvas. So it's always been fascinating. I think it's fascinating to most people, like to let something bad take over you for a while. As long as you can get your own mind back and come back into, in control. To let something just like riding a roller coaster, let it take over for a while. Unfortunately, you can't do that in real life without consequences. Then people, I think, have experimented with that, with letting a demonic force, because it's a thrill ride, letting something take over you, and it's more than mood swings at a certain point. And it's very difficult to tell that from bipolar disorder, for instance, at least in the initial stages. But, I'm sure there are people who have successfully allowed a demon to take over them. Successfully is short term. I don't think it ever could be well resolved.
Yeah, long period.
Yeah. Did that make any sense, what I just told you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it really did. It really did.
Saying I think it's happened, and I think people have done it.
Now, on that note, you guys were talking about TV shows. I'd like to really have your opinions, both of your opinions, because you guys are like, I would say you guys have the entire gambit of age. Carl is the sage. Jimmy, well, you're the kid. I love that. I just want to keep calling you kid. That's why I just love it. But
at 30, I'm glad you still can call me kid, and that's all.
Listen,
at 6, 10 years younger, 8 years younger than 30.
All I got to say is at 63, I wish somebody would call me kid. But anyway, I'd love to have your opinion, because we all know how the media can turn around and influence so many people, and that's where I think a lot of the attachments and stuff are starting. That people are seeing this stuff on TV. How much influence do you feel that this has on actual paranormal investigators? Let's say not your thrill seekers coming in, just to experience something, but paranormal investigators as a whole, because for some reason, paranormal investigators that I've experienced are starting to walk away with problems, and I often feel that these are more my opinion is these are more psychological problems, and these are people who, again, are walking into something without a solid spiritual base. What's your opinions on that?
Well, it's a powerful influence, the media, because it's people's pipeline to another reality. It's called reality television, so essentially they believe they're watching a documentary of a real situation, and of course, to a degree, a lot of them are. But, in media, to use a grand example, The Exorcist pretty much threw the fear of God into us about Ouija boards and defined what we know or feel about demonic possession, made it scary. That was an imposed reality, although, of course, it was predicated upon a real case, real situation. The popular shows, the television shows, they're a magnificent influence on people, because they show people how you're supposed to investigate, supposedly. And but we have to keep in mind that what we are seeing on the television screen or the video camera, we're seeing what an editor and a cameraman tell us to see. What they decide we're going to see. You are seeing a rectangle. You're not seeing what's to the side or in back, and not seeing what's been edited out. So you're seeing a controlled version of reality. But they are very influential. People make the mistakes the investigators on television make. They proceed the way the investigators do. But you just have to stay very detached and objective when you're watching this. You got to decide what you believe. You know, you can't just follow our heroes of haunt and into their forays and say they're doing everything right, because it's a product. It's an entertainment.
Exactly. It's
it might even
entertainment.
be a sincere entertainment, but that's what it is.
Right.
Seek representation.
Exactly. I mean, people don't realize. I mean, for you do a guest spot. You guys all know what it's like. You guys do a guest spot. They film you for 5 hours. Maybe you'll get 35 seconds on there. That's normal. That's just a normal. That's the way it works, man. You guys know that. So the people are getting an askewed view of it, and this harkens back to a time when, Jimmy, you're the kid, so I'm going to talk to Carl on this one. So, but you can listen in. Now, you can sit at the big guy table with us. We love you.
Brothers can't watch and listen in to what you guys say.
But Carl and I'm sure Carl remembers back with the big satanic scare of the 1970s, where, my God, I mean, well, first of all, you had serial killers. You had Ramirez. You had the Night, who's the Night Stalker. You had Son of Sam. You had all these. You had these real life, killers out there, and then it mixed up with all sorts of movies and all these books and false memories and everything. Do you guys? I mean, Carl, how much of this still lingers today? Because I've noticed that there are so many people out there, and I have no problems with people doing ritual before a paranormal investigation or something that may, and I mean, I do blessings and prayers myself before I do things. But do you think that this has had an adverse effect on the field today because of all of that sensationalism?
I don't really. I think it's two different things when you get into the real, serious negativity like serial killers. They're still around. They just seem to get more press because it was essentially an outbreak of that in the beginning of the 1950s, but coalescing in the 60s and 70s, later 60s, early 70s. Suddenly you were hearing all about these cults and serial killers.
Right.
Maybe they just don't get the same press. I know they're still out there, but it seemed like there was more of it going on. And it did seem somehow connected to the occult revival.
Yeah.
This explosion of different belief systems.
Yeah, Jim Jones, Father Divine, perfect examples of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it shows how influential one demagogue can be, one leader, charismatic leader can be, and get all these people to follow him. Father Divine, like you're saying. And,
Jimmy, Jimmy, you just got a gold star for knowing who Father Divine is. I will never put. Right now, you don't even have a booster seat anymore at the big guy table. You just impressed me with that one, man. I'm telling you, I'm shocked.
Father Divine sat on a throne. Yeah. With a crown in back of it. Yeah, so it was you got these charismatic now. One singular person who emerged from this was Anton Szandor LaVey.
Right.
And I will tell you something. What was it? Today is the 29th. 2 days ago was the anniversary of his death.
Right, correct.
He died in 1997. Am I saying that right? Yeah, 1997. And he was 67 years of age, born in 1930. And I mourned him when he went. Anton LaVey was such a stellar character. But he wasn't formidable in the way, here is the high priest of the Church of Satan, the Black Pope, evil galore. But he was comparatively harmless because he came out and said he was a Satanist. Not an animal sacrifice or anything like that. But, he said he was a Satanist. He didn't have the divisive subtlety of a Jim Jones. Or Father Divine, or somebody who's going to, extreme example would be Jim Jones, to take people, or David Koresh later, to take people's will and essentially their souls and manipulate them, drain them of finances and drain them of their wills. LaVey was innocuous. He was a cartoon character, but I liked LaVey.
Yeah, he just gave the idea to people to be rebellious. He didn't lead them that way. He said, this is how you should be, and people led that out of their own volition. He was
Right.
like mastermind.
Right. And I'll tell you about LeVay, something I admire and even like about him. He was a charlatan, but he came out and said, "I'm a charlatan. What do you think of my brand?" You know, a lot of charlatans out there. Here I am, and I am saying I'm one. So, follow me or don't. And he actually didn't want followers. He wanted adherents to his beliefs. An adherent is different than a follower. He did not enslave people. I mean, he was larger than life. He was kind of the zeitgeist of that counterculture, that occult revival. You know.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I didn't agree a lot of in the forms he believed, but he also was very straightforward of who he was. He didn't try to. He wasn't the three things that make a cult. He was in some forms like some people that listen to. But before we get off this topic too much, before it takes away from my brain, but going back to like,
I don't want to take away from your brain. Not by any means.
Talking about pivotal figures and of course entertainment. A lot of people don't realize this, but I quote a group that was in the 1860s that still exists to this day called the Ghost Club, and talking about pop culture and talking about entertainment, which was not really possible back then in the form that we have now. There was a man called Charles Dickens who was a paranormal investigator.
Charles Dickens, right here showing him.
And he wrote many books equated to ghosts, but a lot of his things was that ghosts were of the human conception. So you've seen a translation difference in how somebody like a Charles Dickens, like he wrote an article something about haunted houses, and basically says, "Oh, haunted house, beware, but it is you that makes."
You're saying that the revered author, the English author Charles Dickens, was a ghost hunter?
Well, that's Miss Carroll's a prime example.
That's a wonderful ghost story. That's tantamount to saying that Ben Franklin was an occultist. Oh, he was. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I look at Dickens, and I look at it as a prime example because literature back then was the key point. It wasn't entertainment.
That was people couldn't flip on the television sets or go to Netflix. They had the books, the literature.
But it was back then too. Back in 1860. Well, look at we have a member of the spiritualist church here. And that was 1840. So it's very close in time frame. But that, of course, was UK.
So that's when Tim Shaw founded spiritualism. You're saying in 1840.
That's 1840. Yes.
Maybe his direct antecedent, who looked just like him, bore the same name.
Yes.
Now that's scary, guy. That's like very, very, very scary. Although I was just up in the Hydesville area not too long ago.
Really? I've been through there, yeah.
Every so often I like to go up there and just pay a little homage to what's left of the cottage and see the brother's house and everything. It's just one of those things that you have to do. And of course, you've got the birth of the Mormon religion, so we can stop at the Sacred Grove where the prophet Joseph Smith saw Christ and God. So it's really sometimes you just get lost in that whole. In the whole mysticism part of life. And that's what I love about it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. But I have to say that this has got to be one of the most entertaining interviews that I've had in a long time. What do you think?
We love this. You're going to be put on the hot seat in a minute, too, Tim. There's a question from the chat room. And it says, she asked a question, and then as an afterthought, she said, even ask Tim. I know he dabbled in the demonic. So, yeah. Bad enough I dragged you out of the broom closet. Now somebody's dragging you out of the bowels of hell. All right.
Fun dabble. Yeah.
I wanted to roll off that thing, Tim, though, quickly for people interested in like Mormon and spiritualism. Of course, in sociology and of course within the creations of those branch lines. For people to look into that, it's called the burnt over territory. Look into that stuff.
The burnt over district that stretched along the Erie Canal from Albany to Buffalo.
Yep.
And yeah, that was unbelievable. I mean, you had the birth of the Seventh-day Adventists, which the Millerites. You had the free love community of Oneida, which we now only think of as silverware, and a host of other ones. So I mean, yeah, it's a wonderful thing if people get a chance to study it, especially New York people, the New York Staters. It is an amazing time. But go ahead, Mar. I'm afraid to ask these questions, and I'll try to almost be as truthful as
normal. Yeah. Okay. All right. She said, in all the years that you guys have been doing investigations and working with demons, have you ever come across a demon following a family home? I mean, following a family for generations?
I think so. Oh, I don't believe I have. I've encountered families where a demonic force seemed impossible to shake. One exception could be, and I'm trying to recall her name. I think James would know. Yes, you would know. This lady whose parents were in a very dark satanic cult, which gives Satanism a bad name, but it's a bad name. And she suffered ritualistic abuse, and she seems to be doing quite well, all things considered. And that, in a sense, is generational, within the two successive generations. But I haven't known, and I'm sure there are cases where this influence is passed down from one generation to another, and it may be as many as like 3 generations. The grandparents or something were into diabolism, and it's replicated in the offspring, and then their offspring. So I wish I could give you a more direct answer to that. I just have not encountered it yet, but I've heard of it.
Sorry, can you reiterate the question? I was actually dancing to like the Bee Gees in my mind.
James is a lucky. We are almost at a full moon. We have a Halloween full moon, and James is starting to show the symptoms now. If you could have seen him, he's on his office chair, pivoting, spinning it around.
Mm-hmm.
And going through his gyrations in front of the mirror, then went over to his girlfriend and started doing more gyrations. And, all I can think of is the moon rays are coming in now.
But yeah, full moon Saturday night.
That eclair was massive, man. Lots of sugar.
Me, it's taking me way down.
It's possessed me, my friend. I have the eclair possession.
Oh my God.
But we must reiterate the question.
Yeah, please reiterate.
They're talking about a generational demonic influence like this passed down that may be in successive generations, like from the grandparents on or something like that. Like a generational curse, but how about generational demonic influence?
I've never necessarily dealt with it either. Like Carl has stated, I do believe it's a possibility, especially more so if like there's some sort of ritual done, and of course that demand's not met, then it will go to the next of the lineage. And we see this more I've seen this, of course, more in relation to like jinn cases where a curse has been put on somebody. And
D-J-I-N-N.
Or J-I-N-N for some people, but yeah. So, but in that same token, yeah, I see. I dealt with the jinn case, but it wasn't generational. But yeah, I definitely believe they definitely are a possibility.
Yeah, I'd like to hear of a case like that. I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah. I bet they're tough. I
wonder if my brother Keith has ever heard of that.
I bet they're cemented. So like they're so ingrained. So to like decipher that case, to mull through that, I bet it would not be fun.
I used to work with a Muslim gentleman, and he used to tell me some fascinating stories about those type of cases involving the jinn. So it's fully ingrained in that culture, which is amazing to me. And if people want to read a little bit more about it, I mean, Rosemary Ellen Guiley wrote a beautiful book on it.
Yes.
But now when it comes to successive generations, I had a case where somebody thought they had something negative. Not so much a curse, but it was almost something that had a personality to it. When we investigated, there was some stuff going on, but it didn't have anything really to do with successive generations. What I think what happened was they moved into you guys know, hauntings and activity, there's no rhyme or reason. It's the right person in the right place at the right time. And that was the situation when they moved into this type of house. And I think they attributed that the grandmother told the mother about something, something that was haunting her, something that was demonic, something that was very, very evil. And I believe that the daughter, believed that that's what it was. But case in point was when they moved it, they left this house, everything stopped. There was no more activity, with the family. It didn't follow them, which if it was truly attached to them or directed or focused at them, it would have gone wherever they went. So that was as close to a case like that I've ever been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And like you said, the perfect thing, Tim, a lot of people don't understand, and I use this example on one of our podcast episodes of when we talked about haunted dolls and objects, but this also correlates to big objects such as houses and buildings, that a person is like the battery you put in a toy. The toy doesn't work unless you put the battery in it. So,
right.
We are the battery, and there's some rhyme or reason that there's certain individuals that apply either through personality or characteristics that amplify or activate that haunting.
Now, I've got a question that was brought up to me from Hull House, from the latest the latest public fundraiser that we did, and it concerns, I always like to call them meters, gadgets, and all things that blink real pretty. Do either of you feel, well, how can I describe this? Do either of you feel, first of all, that modern paranormal equipment can open the door for all this stuff can open? And I always call it an artificial portal. So could you think that by using this equipment improperly, without opening and closing it, or doing it in a frivolous manner, can it bring something negative into this earth plane?
I think it depends more on the users than the devices themselves.
Definitely.
Yeah, they have potential to.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything. So I wish I had a patent on it. That there was some powerful ghost machine that could open portals. You know what I think that is done more? I think in the Hadron Collider, the particle collider experiments with particles. I think it inadvertently they tear open the dimensional fabric sometimes. Where there's intent, there's the key word, intent.
Yeah.
Where there's intent to contact the spirit realm or open up another dimension.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can happen. I think it's more the energy people are putting into it. Mm-hmm. It gives them a device. I'm not saying there's no value to them, but many of these were not designed for ghost hunting, but they're implemented. Exactly. I mean, they're incorporated into ghost hunting.
Because it's a device to try to collect data. Yeah, it's bells and whistles people like to use,
I'm actually working on the design for one that can open portals, but I need that extra $1 million. I used up the first. No, I didn't get any grants or anything like that, but, if I could have some people to work with me, I might be onto something.
Yeah, definitely. I believe it's intent too. I think that I use this in the nature of non-paranormal nature, and it's brutal. But you could take a hammer and you can bang a nail, or you can bash somebody's skull in. It's really dependent on the person and the intent.
Now, here's the second part of my question. Over the years, I've noticed that working with the scanners and the ITC technology, and even certain people using audio recorders, what I'm finding is that we're getting like more abusive and profanity that is actually brought through. Now, the first theory is always like, well, the other side may be using the profanity because FCC rules and regulations wouldn't allow it. But I'm seeing it more and more. So I think what I'm trying to say is, do you think that possibly we're tapping into like a lower frequency, like something that would be more apt to bring in something lower, I won't say demonic, but more vibrationally, nastier? Also, you guys remember the late Constantinos, and what a tragic,
Yes.
I love them. I really did. I can't say enough about them, but if you notice on a lot of their EVPs, the voice always sounded the same, and it was loaded with profanities. So do you think that perhaps that we're opening the door to something lower when we use this stuff?
That's an excellent question. That's the banner question of the night, I think.
Yeah,
go ahead, James.
I think that's an interesting theory. It's a possibility, but I also look at the theory of maybe we're getting more swear words because I've seen a lot of the ways people investigate, and it really is more not an investigation but an interrogation. And I feel like if I was being asked all those questions, I'd probably say F off as well, because and a lot of the times it feels like we're in an interrogation more than an investigation. So I think that could be a possibility as well, where these spirits, which we call, and most times if they're not residual, intelligent, that they're intelligibly telling us to F off and leave them alone because they're sick of all these questions. So I think that's a possibility. So it could be a mixture of things, but that is definitely fascinating. Maybe we are getting that. As far as the Constantinos, God rest their soul, but there is also, of course, more underlying issues to their situation too.
True, very true.
But how about you, Carl? That's a very interesting question.
It's been postulated that these entities are lower base, closer to our plane, so they're the ones most readily tapped into. They're certainly more conversational. But I wonder if there is an increase in that. These vulgar spirits, that talk like, longshoremen, as we used to say. They just have this guttural verbiage, and it's. I guess they're closer to us. I mean, it'd be harder to isolate an angelic being who talks about, positive things. And they're just closer to our Earth, I think, and they have a unique, like a parlance that, they're communicative like we are. Like the street talk you hear, like that.
Right.
Oh my God, it's true. And that is fascinating. I think we are seeing more of it. I'm just going to give you a quick example. I was actually case manager of this situation in Brooklyn, New York. And this was in 2003, and I was working for TAPS. I was then a member of the Atlantic Paranormal Society. This was a year before the television show Ghost Hunters. And we had this, I actually dubbed this entity in the house. It was the 3-story brown house in Brooklyn, New York, and owned by a young lady. And I called him Wise Guy. We didn't have a name for him, although a missing person, a lady who was last seen in that house, her name was revealed in an EVP. And that was verified. But this spirit that was invading the house, I had to call him Wise Guy. They were calling him a demon, some people were. But one of our investigators was known for going off the deep end, and he was on the TV show. And he was...
No names. We all know.
Out of professional courtesy, I can't even infer who this was. If anybody else infers, that's your own inferment. The onus is off of me. But he wore a cap. Let's put it that way. Well, we all did. And that narrows it down. So he was part of the original home team of TAPS. And we were in this Brooklyn home. And... he went upstairs and started yelling at this. Oh boy, we got good evidence in this house. We got results. But he went upstairs and started yelling at the spirit. He's like, "You're picking on a little girl. Why don't you pick on me? Why don't you do this?" And he's going on like that and swearing at it. Okay, and I actually, after he went on that bombast, I actually went into the room by myself and I said, I didn't see anything, but I said, I must apologize for my young friend. And so we were down in the kitchen playing our EVP results, and people are conversing while we're talking. Many of these classic EVP come out in incidental conversation. We're just talking, gabbing.
Right. So
this young man was he's saying, "Oh yeah, I challenge the demon. The demon's 1 million years old, but I challenge him. Okay, and we're recording our conversation. Okay, later on we're playing back that kitchen conversation. And you hear this young man saying, "Oh yeah, I challenge the demon. I'm 1 million years old." And during it, we hear this extraneous voice. It's a male voice. That's remarkable in itself. This male voice is, I said, "There's something else. I hear it. There's something." It's going, I said, "There's someone talking there that wasn't there." And then it becomes clear. It goes, and while this guy is going off, how there's bravura challenging the spirit, the demon, he called it. This voice, this disembodied voice says, yeah, F you, man. But he says it all right, F you, man. And then, we continue talking. We didn't hear it at the time. And then the voice goes, made a funny noise. I said, this spirit is mocking us. It has a sense of humor. I mean, isn't that remarkable that this thing, has a personality at all?
Yeah.
But it's playing games with us. I called him Wise Guy.
I think that falls on another theory too, which could fall along those lines.
I don't know if I even have a theory for that.
Well, no, with where that's not necessarily a theory, but the theory of that, everybody thinks that we deal with like old time ghosts, like from the 1700s, 1800s, early 1900s, but maybe that some of the times that we get swear words and interaction, maybe they are modern spirits that did not die long ago, and in their vernacular, swearing is a part of it. We're a little bit more boisterous in our language nowadays than maybe so back then, but yeah, I definitely think that could be a possibility too. Maybe we interact with more of a modern sense of what's there than what's old,
Yes.
So it's possible. Because everybody always says, why don't we talk to modern spirits like, yo, what's up, dude? But maybe we do, and you don't know it.
This uncorked a bottle, because I was working at Slater Mill, and we would have ghost hunts there. And this was like the day before Halloween. I mean, this is like practically the anniversary of it. 2 days before Halloween it was. So I think it was like an anniversary now. And we were in this part of the campus of Slater Mill in Pawtucket has an old house, the grounds for an old house. When I say old, this house was built in 1758. And it was haunted by the spirit of a little girl. So we're recording, hoping for EVP. And my brother gave me the recording to analyze, the audio recording, because a voice came out in it. And we're talking about the spirits. And I hear this, it's male, the voice comes out, and I'm listening to this recording that my brother recorded, and it sounds, for the life of me, it sounds like it's saying, don't rock the fork. So what does that mean? Is the spirit trying to talk like us? Don't rock the fork. So I turned up the volume and I listened to it again. It wasn't saying don't rock the fork. It was saying, now what the...
I love it.
Just saying, what? This is an 18th century house that was occupied up until 1960, and from 1758 to 1960. Who talked like that? Like nobody in the 1800s. Like now what the Where do these guys come from? There's another Wise Guy. They sound like people, but they got a sense of humor that just mystifies me. I mean, you'd hear a voice that said, "Be gone from my abode," depart, I am confined here. This is confinement, but no, you don't get the Jacob Marleys. You got the dock worker. You get the all-around guy. What the, what the. That just doesn't make sense. Is they proceeding from our own subconsciousnesses, or are they, genuine spirits that that's their personality?
Good question.
Very good question. Good guys.
Very good question. Speaking about good questions, Marlo, do you have any more from the chat room?
I've got one quick one from the chat room, and then we're going to let them tell us where people can find them and all that good stuff. All right.
Tim comes out with some of his more profound questions.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I warned Jimmy. I said I have some questions, and I just didn't. I've been like waiting, to get the two of you on one night so that I could ask these questions. These questions have been sitting there in my desk drawer for a little while. So
they're going to be sitting until the next time they come back, because you wrote 4 pages worth of questions.
I wrote 6 pages of questions, guys. I'm telling you, I'm not. I had to. I just had to, because you guys are fascinating, and when you get experts like yourself who have all this experience, that's when it's time to go and take advantage of it. But go ahead, Mark.
All right, we'll get this last question in. They want to know if you guys use gemstones or crystals during your work, like an example being a rosary with an amethyst beads.
That's a good question. I think whatever works for you. It's kind of like I use in the token that if you go to battle, you wear armor. Back in the medieval ages, you wore armor and a helmet, and you had a sword. Nowadays, it's a bulletproof vest and a helmet. So, you know, those are protective items. So I think that you can use those protective items like gemstones and rosaries and crosses or what other substance that gives you a positive nature. I don't necessarily use gemstones or anything like that. You know, I do use religious iconography. Thank you. Iconography.
That's that street a mile down. You take a left. Iconography.
Iconography. I use some religious iconography, and but that is more so because I have positive intentions with those things. You know, I vibe with those, but. I think
it's a cross, James, like a crucifix or anything.
No,
I don't remember you wearing one.
Not all times. On my keychain, I do have a St. Benedict's medal, so my keys are always with me. But like in cases, I will put, you know, a St. Benedict's crucifix on with just for that added protection. But I think it's more of like I can center on that. So if I do feel like something negative's at play or trying to affect me, I can center on that object, and it's like more of like a source to kind of put my perception on than anything. And I think that's what other people do with other certain ways of using gemstones or religious objects of all different kinds. So I think it's really what empowers you, empowers that person, empowers the faith. So you know, like some people like to use sage, but I rather use frankincense or myrrh instead of sage. So I think it's to each their own, and what they believe in, what they believe invokes a positivity. How about you, Carl?
Let my prayer rise before you as incense. That's our homily. Yeah. Now I got a different answer from James because I do employ crystals, and I mean I don't use them to summon spirits like a philosopher's stone, but I tend to like them. Well, James likes them. I have a wand. Pretty. Yeah, they're pretty, and I have a wand. If we had visual, I would go out to my car and get it and show it to you. It's 17 inches long. It weighs 2 pounds, and it's got crystals. It's got a carnelian stone on one end. That's the sender, and the receiving stone is the smoky quartz crystal. And I just think it's a cool implement, you know. I've used it in, you know, ghost hunting to see if I get a response from it. But for me, it's just my personal wishing wand in that it's a symbol. Yeah. To me, it's a symbol of reality magic. If I contemplate a goal, some aspiration, and I'm doing that while I'm looking at it, regarding the wand, then I'm honor bound to fulfill that. Otherwise, it'll drain its associational power. So yeah, I like gems and things. I'm wearing a pendant right now, which is actually a sigil of Lucifer, but it's not a negative connotation for me. And I wear an onyx ring and silver rings. I'm just fond of gems, but that's because it's a lodestone to me. It's an association. I don't necessarily think the power resides in the object, in the implement. I'm just fond of it.
Guys, I hate to break into this, but we're rapidly running out of time, and I want everybody to know how to get a hold of you guys and what you guys are doing.
We'll wrap it up with that.
Yes, well, the best way you can reach us, of course, is the easiest way, because some people can't understand Duo Daemonologie and the spelling of the old English version of it. But the best way, and I still, like Carl and I did get it, but we're still mind blown. Our website is www.demonology.org, demonology.org. So you can look us up that way, demonology.org or Duo Daemonologie.
We were surprised to have domain of that. Like demonology, we have it. Just demonology.org is us.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's the quickest way.
Well, get to us, guys. I got it. Oh, Facebook. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, we also have a Facebook page for Duo Daemonologie and Panorama Paranormal that is directed by Elise Giamarco Carlson, who manages for us in Duo Daemonologie. So you can find us. We're present on Facebook, the ubiquitous Facebook, but the easiest way is demonology.org.
you guys are my forever hero, and I want to thank you guys for being on tonight. And I mean, tonight it's like the brain matter is coming out of my ears right now because of the information that you guys have let us have. Right, Mar?
I'm just concerned that you have brain matter. I mean, I'm shocked.
I love you. I love you too. It's almost that time, so I got almost time to say good night, Mar.
Good night, everybody.
Have us back on. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You have been listening to The Rev and Witch Show. Classic horror provided by Incompetech. Written and performed by Kevin MacLeod. Copyright 2017.